The early 2000s were definitely one of the best eras for gaming regarding the birth of new franchises that would shape the future for other games of its genre, and generally set a new standard for what is generally expected out of those kinds of games. Halo, Half-Life 2, GTA 3, these are just a few examples of what the 2000s had to offer for the gaming industry by presenting advancements within their genres, whether it was through new gameplay features, a brand new way of storytelling, horribly aged map design. These were all features that changed and shaped the gaming industry for the better. Now, a similarity you may have noticed with the games I had just mentioned is that they are all shooter games in one way or another. So what other games were there around this time that shaped and produced new genres of video games to become loved by so many? Resident Evil is a horror franchise created by Capcom. Even today, the series is known to be one of the few consistent AAA horror franchises on the market right now. Now, I will be completely honest with you guys, I have not personally played Resident Evil. Why? Because I'm a massive It is important to understand that Resident Evil was making waves on the horror side of the gaming industry, and a fourth installment was being heavily anticipated. So Capcom looked to local Twitter wasteman Hideki Kamiya, who would begin work on the next Resident Evil game. However, he didn't quite grasp the idea of what made Resident Evil so popular. Kamiya had it so that the new Resident Evil he planned would have it focus on a much more combat-focused aspect rather than being an actual horror game. He wanted a horror franchise to not be focused on horror. Well, let that sink in for a second. The leader of the project at Capcom eventually checked back in on Kamiya and the team developing the game, and to no one's surprise, Kamiya's take on Resident Evil wasn't quite what Capcom were hoping for. But what he had made was shown to be something that had a kind of potential to become something else, its own game of sorts. After being dropped as the new Resident Evil game, Kamiya and the team were given the go-ahead to make what they had already created into a brand new game. This would be known as Devil May Cry, the first character action game. Now, the first Devil May Cry game is very much the odd one out of the entire franchise. When you compare it to the over-the-top themes the game has today with the release of the 5th installment, it's really hard to think the series started off with an eerie theme and atmosphere to it. For example, this is a scene in DMC 1. And for comparison, this is a scene from DMC 3.
Happy feet, wombo combo. That ain't
The game opens up with a scrolling text detailing the events that took place before the story of the game we're about to experience. Here we're told that once upon a time, a demon known as Sparda basically stopped the end of the world by closing the gate that connected the underworld to the human world. He resided on Earth afterwards until his eventual death that we don't really get details to. Now, this would be a really cool monologue and opening to what could be a very great game if Sparda wasn't doing the most ridiculous fight choreography. But anyway, after that brief world building, this happens.
I can't seem to get any real business.
Dismal, crazy, badass.
Sword. Time to go to work, guys.
Savage, sick, get smoking, sexy style.
Ladies and gentlemen, Devil May Cry. We are introduced to two characters in this cutscene. Dante, the player character, we are told that he owns a devil hunting business of some sort, and that he is the son of the Sparda character that was introduced in the dramatic opening. And then there's Trish, who at first seems to be a villain to our protagonist, but after trying to kill Dante, she explains that,
"But I'm not your enemy."
"So why'd you throw a motorcycle at him?" Dante is hesitant at first, but it is shown that Trish looks similar to Dante's mother, so he goes to help her. Trish explains to Dante that an evil threat known as Mundus plans to start some bullshit, and so she guides him to Mallet Island, which is where Mundus is supposedly meant to be residing. After Trish guides Dante to the island, she leaves. And then you're thrown into what is probably the least welcoming opening hours of the game I've ever experienced in a long ass time. Like seriously, the amount of enemies thrown at you early on ranges from difficult to downright fucking ridiculous. Waves of enemy feel like they never end, and to top it all off, in these first few levels, you are armed with just your sword, Elastor, and your dual firearms, Ebony and Ivory, making it so your abilities and combos are very limited. And to top it all off, if you die and don't have any of those rare yellow orbs to revive you at the last checkpoint, you have to start the level from the very beginning and fight all those waves of enemies all over again. With all these factors in mind, it is no surprise why some of the earlier Devil May Cry games are considered the hardest of the character action genre, but even sometimes the hardest games ever made. There is one last part of the game that makes this an excruciating experience all around. The hardest, scariest, and most annoying enemy ever crafted into a game ever. The camera. Having this game been made in a day and age where the free use of a completely 360-degree camera wasn't as commonplace in games as it is today, meaning DMC1 relies on fixed camera angles, and in almost every location there is a fight, it is yet another obstacle in your path to beating this hellhole game. Sudden camera cuts can be the eventual end of your playthrough and whatever is left of your sanity at this point. After playing the game for what could be several painful hours, the story finally decides to pick up pace towards the end, as one of the recurring bosses in the game is revealed to be none other than Dante's brother, Virgil, under the control of Mundus. The eventual reveal to this is actually quite good, to be fair. Even as someone that's played DMC 3 before DMC 1, Neil Angelo's reveal was something I didn't quite expect. Mainly because when you insert it into the DMC timeline, it makes literally no sense considering he dies and then shows up in DMC 5 alive, and well, but it also doesn't quite make sense because Dante says in the game his brother was believed to have died in the house fire when they were younger, along with his mother, but in the events of DMC 3, that wouldn't be true since it is said that the two brothers meet up to fight every so often, so where the hell does Neil Angelo fall into the DMC timeline? But anyway, after this reveal, it is time for another final twist. Trish is actually working for Mundus and lured Dante to the island so Mundus could destroy the final son of Sparta, as shown that he had already gone to Virgil and now Dante was next.
Boy, ain't no fucking way, boy. Boy, ain't no way, boy.
Trish's plan comes to fruition in one of the most annoying boss fights in the game, where once again, you are fighting the damn camera. After she betrays Dante, the Devil Hunter makes one last effort to save her from some falling rubble before then stating he will kill her if they are to meet again. Which turns out to be a bunch of bullshit later when Dante reaches the final boss room and is worried when Trish is shown to be in danger.
Boy, ain't no way, boy.
It is also at this point in time where the characters begin to start talking a lot more, and we get some of the best line delivery you would have ever heard.
How much longer are you going to keep sapping? Come out and show yourself, Mundus!
It is very clear that Dante's voice actor did not want anything to do with this game through his very, very passionate performances. After what is probably the most out-of-nowhere crazy bullshit boss fight in the game, Dante goes to pay his final respects to Trish.
Man, I'm dead.
Which gets us one of the best line deliveries in DMC history.
I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Anyway, the island's gonna blow up now. It's never explained fully why, but it's gonna blow up. So if you haven't memorized your way around this massive, expansive, completely connected level, then you can go fuck yourself. But it is eventually cut off after we are locked into a room by Mundus, who seems to be very alive and well. This is where another crazy ass boss battle takes place until Trish shows up to be very alive and well and lends Dante her power. After we finally defeat Mundus for the final time, the fight ends with the first instance of the well-known DMC line.
Jackpot.
And with that, Mundus is shot back into the underworld, never to be seen again. Now that both Trish and Dante are locked in this room, they accept their fates together. But then a fucking plane drops through the ceiling and a random Warthog Run type shit starts happening, and they get off the island, and just the next time we hear some more amazing dialogue.
The sky, so clear, so blue.
What?
And then they fly off into the distance. Ladies and gentlemen, Devil May Cry. DMC 1 is such a strange game, but overall it honestly isn't a bad one. I think it's just a game that shows its age, but has a certain charm to it. Some people regard the first game to be one of the best in the series, if not the best. And to those people, you need to get your head checked, but the gameplay is simple but effective. It's nowhere near the crazy scale of stuff that you can do in the more recent releases in the series, but it's effective in adding a layer of skill to learning the game. Something the next game didn't quite seem to understand. But if you're a fan of old PS1 titles, DMC is a pretty big recommendation from me. If you can get past all of its flaws, it's not the worst game in the franchise, but it's not anywhere near the best in my opinion. Anyway, here is where I would place it on my definitive and objectively correct DMC tier list. If you disagree with me, I don't care. I can't play the song, but you probably know the line. Alright, real quick end piece just before you click off. This is my first time doing a video of this sort, but I had a lot of fun making this video, and I know a bunch of different other topics I'd be very happy to talk about. And until then, I'll see you later. Thank you.